So, is anybody here an iOS developer? So, you're on our side, so just making sure. Anybody here have an iPhone? I'm curious. That guy? Cool. That guy. So we could all dog on them together.
I don't use it.
So I'm just going to go over why I think a person should develop for Android. David Corrado, I'm organizer of this meetup and of the Omaha meetup. What is the best way to switch sides when you're on this clip? Oh. Let's get the head. Let's get the head. Let's see here. So Android has the most users. Actually, a lot of people don't know this. So Android has here's the stats. So I guess Android has 82%, iOS has 14%. But then keep in mind this is worldwide. So the next slide is in the United States, which is still ahead, but not as big as a margin. So near 52% to 44%. Also, feel free to yell at me if I'm, saying anything that's incorrect, because it's possible. But most of my stuff, I'm trying to back by evidence. Yeah, so the Android amount of users is a really, really good reason to use Android. I just threw this in here. Somebody put it on Apple Maps. Google Maps. And Android pissing on Apple. So in my opinion, and I think most iOS developers would agree with this, that the developer tools in Android is a lot better. Specifically because it's built by JetBrains, which JetBrains makes an IDE for Apple as well. Don't remember what it's called. AppCode. And it's pretty sweet, but it can't use it doesn't use their UI builder part, which kind of sucks. So you're constantly going to have to go back and forth. But I definitely recommend using AppCode if you're programming in iOS, because it'd probably make your life a lot easier. They also just recently had a big update with emulators, so the emulators really, really fast, just as fast as iOS now. That was a big complaint, is that the emulator sucked on Android. So here that I've used emulators, are really quick. I just have one problem, that they don't plug into Charles, which is just me being nitpicky. But they'll probably eventually get that. And Instant Run, which is a feature that's in Android that's not in iOS. So basically it smartly goes through and identifies what is the quickest way to update the screen. So if you just update a small amount of code, it tries to only rebuild that small amount of code, so it takes compile time. I don't have exact stats of how long stuff used to take, but it was between 30 seconds to a minute to compile, to take up to 5 seconds to do a quick update to the UI. In my opinion, Android is more Git friendly. In Apple, you have these certain files that actually come down to be XML if you actually look at the source code. But if multiple people are modifying those and you have to try to merge them, it's kind of a pain in the butt, because they kind of try to abstract this away so you never see this. But when you merge, you have to deal with problems of code conflicts. I haven't dealt with merging in years for iOS, because I've never worked with multiple people. So I don't know how much of a problem this is still, but it's still not 100% readable, I would say. And as a iOS developer, you probably very rarely look at this code, so it's pretty difficult to merge. Another benefit is that you don't have to wait for your app to get approved. So if you find yourself having a bug, you can release it right away. Takes an hour or two to propagate through the servers, just as long as it takes Apple after they approve you, and then you hit the button to release to the App Store. So it takes an hour or two to propagate to all the servers. But on iOS, if you have like an emergency release, they have this expedited review process, which I don't think is even really quick either. It's probably within 24 hours or something like that. And they say to not use that all the time. So if you piss them off by using it too many times, you're going to have to wait the normal wait period, which is 4 to 10 days for a bug fix, which is pretty terrible. That's actually a big feature that I've heard like developer videos saying, is that you can quickly iterate. So if you find a problem, you can really quickly resolve it, rather than iOS, it just takes a long time. I think eventually Android will become right one to run anywhere. It's getting pretty close to that. You can basically develop for everything that Google works with and have it work anywhere. So you can do Android Wear, TV, Android Auto, Chromecast, and Chrome OS. You could make Glass. You could actually all use Android Studio and basically follow the same pattern. I've only done Wear and Android, but you still have like activities and all that stuff. It's all stuff they're used to. Just sometimes you have to use custom views for the environment, but pretty much don't have to write a crazy amount of code to work in multiple platforms. And then, in my opinion, I think eventually it'll work on Windows and Mac just as like a desktop software. You can actually get this to work by like dragging your APK to a certain program into a Chrome plugin, but they market that as a testing environment for Chrome OS. So they don't make it very easy, but I imagine eventually they're going to probably have Windows and Mac apps that can be packaged and just work. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. In my opinion, Android is a lot better than iOS. That's kind of what I'm comparing to the two top dogs in open source projects. So they have a lot of people that just provide tons of free code for you to use, and it makes your life tons easier than the iOS environment. So like this is Jake Warden, that's Fabric, that's Square, and that's Facebook, and they all have tons of open source libraries that everybody uses. Fabric's good for Crashlytics, crashing bugs. Square is good for retrofit. Dagger, like the bigger, and then Jake Warden works for Square. He's done some of his own products like View Page Indicator, Butter Knife, stuff like that. Facebook has a lot of code inspection tools and an image loading library that's pretty sweet. We've got some other stuff. So there's tons of open source libraries, and in my opinion, Android is way better than iOS with open source projects. Let's see here. So you have a choice of your own programming language. So in Java is really, really powerful, and I think that's what makes all of these open source libraries really good, is that Java, you can do code generation at compile time, so that's what powers a lot of these really cool libraries, and basically makes, in my opinion, Android a way better developer environment than iOS. And also, JetBrains came out with a language called Kotlin that you can develop in, which basically is comparable to Swift, if that's what somebody's compared to. And you can use code between Kotlin and Java and have some of your code be in Kotlin and some of it be in Java. So in Android, you have more hardware options. So on iOS, you're limited to what hardware options iOS provides. So you really are stuck with the very, very stock hardware. If you're like, let's say, I don't think iOS has NFC yet, does it? Does anyone know? I don't think it has NFC yet. Like Android's had that forever. I don't think they're ever gonna. Maybe they will never do that, but
it has NFC, but it's just locked down for Apple.
Oh yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. So like, you can, if you wanted to get hardware built into your devices, you can just find a hardware manufacturer that does a lot of cool stuff. Like Yodaphone has screens on both sides. One is like a battery optimized side, and one is an Android side. And then you could do like, if you wanted to do thermal imaging or more rugged phone, you can do that without an extra case or something plugging into the phone. And then like if there's probably whatever sensor you can think of, it's just probably built into some Android phones. Also, if you're going to market your app to countries have less money, Android is the market you want to get into because that is where you can get dirt cheap phones. So I guess you got to understand your market. Android Core, so basically almost everything that Android writes except for Google Play Services is open source. So you can get access to the code of like the edit text, which is the editable text field that you can use for Android. So it's no magic, it's no black boxes. You can understand how everything works in Android. In iOS, you can only see the H files, which are basically like Java interfaces, which tell you like what methods are implemented and stuff like that that are public. You can't actually see the actual code. I believe that's true. But that's another advantage of Android. In my opinion, it has a way better developer community. So, in my opinion, I don't see Apple releasing content ever other than WWDC. I'm not an iOS developer very much as I am an Android, but I could be wrong. But I don't feel like they release a whole lot of content. Google releases content like probably every day, like even Android-specific content probably every day or at least once a week. They're pouring out content through Medium, constantly updating stuff and telling you what just got released. There's developer advocates which work at Google, which create a lot of content, and they also manage the Google Plus community. So you could actually ask questions on the Google Plus communities and get Google developers to answer you. People that work for Google can talk to the internal team. It's actually really sweet. I've actually asked a lot of Android Wear questions when I was developing an Android Wear question, and you see people that you see in the videos answering your questions and talking to you. It's kind of experience, in my opinion, you probably won't experience if you're developing iOS apps. And then there's Google Experts, which is basically a list of people that Google certifies as being an expert in a topic. So we're going to try to actually get some of them, hopefully, to do some talks here. And basically, there's kind of people that write blogs, do talks everywhere. So Jake Warden is a Google expert. Dan Liu is a Google expert. A lot of, somebody's super popular, they're probably a Google expert. And Google Developers Group, which is this is one of them, and they sponsor these types of events, which, as far as I know, Apple doesn't do anything like that. Google, let's see here. We have Stack Overflow, which I think I hear, I didn't find any stats on it, but I think Android's like one of the most popular topics on Stack Overflow. So, there's tons of people actually just sitting there waiting for questions to get asked. I assume also probably the developer advocates monitor it too. See them post on there every once in a while. And then Reddit, which I don't use a ton. I don't know if developer advocates go on there. Maybe they just do more Stack Overflow. Another thing that's great about Android is you don't need to be a designer. I feel like before material design, I was kind of lost with the design and kind of didn't know how I should go forward with implementing a good design. Maybe I could copy somebody else's or whatever and kind of change it up a little bit. But Google gives you tons of icons. So you have standard icons through everybody's apps. material design. What time do we start this talk? 6. So I have 13 more minutes. Just making sure I'm not going over. So yeah, basically with material design, there's a design document that tells you exactly how to implement stuff, and they actually provide you a design support library, which gives you a lot of the stock UI and elements, and you can customize them as you need. But basically, I feel like in iOS, you kind of have to know design a little more than with material design, and the design support library kind of tells you what to do. And then it's also libraries built for web, so you can like have a consistent UI between Android and web. It's cheaper to develop for Android, so on Apple, I believe you can develop on multiple platforms, but you can't use Xcode, which kind of, in my opinion, defeats the purpose. So you pretty much need an expensive MacBook Pro. You need like test devices on Android. You can get it for $20. A test device on iOS is probably at least $200 if you get a couple versions back. The cost to release to the iOS App Store is $99 a year, so every single year you're paying $99. On Android, you just pay $25 once. And if you don't want to distribute in the App Store, it's completely free. So if you just wanted to do something on your own on the side, you don't have to pay anything to Google, which is pretty nice. So I can get into the iOS benefits of like what are the other sides. So which some of these are pretty strong to fight to their side. I'll give them that. So I don't think this first one is a really good reason. Basically, with Apple, you know exactly what devices you're dealing with. In my opinion, like they say that Android's fragmented, but like Android is always built with the idea of responsive design in mind, and iOS are kind of trying to make it an afterthought in my mind, and it's kind of a pain in the ass to make stuff actually good and responsive, and they're trying to do UI and iOS is terrible in my opinion. It's really a pain in the ass. Like Android just has always been made to be responsive. So this is a big one that I think has a lot of backing to it. Is Android has less users who want to pay for apps. I didn't get exact stats, but I know that Apple applications make quite a bit more money than Android applications for. I don't know if it's just ads or app store purchases, but from what I hear is they just make tons more money, which kind of sucks. But I just wanted to tell you that that's a good reason to do iOS is that I don't know if anybody has exact stats, but basically it's not an insane amount, but I think I saw something like I don't remember the exact figure, so it's like 100 and then 100 was Google, 100 I don't remember the exact unit, and then like iOS was probably like 150 or 200, so quite a bit more. Another argument, which I don't think is super valid, is that you don't have to support older versions of iOS very long. So like basically it takes Android users longer to upgrade because of manufacturers or the cell phone companies. So, which kind of sucks as a user, but I say as a developer, there's all these support libraries that you could put into your code, which makes it so it's not really hard to do. And then Google Play Services, which I kind of mentioned before, is not open source, which a lot of iOS developers complain about, but nothing on their side is open source as far as I know. So, but you don't have to use this, but you know they're kind of putting a lot of the cool features in this, so it kind of sucks that that's not open source. They're kind of trying to basically make it so Kindle goes away. That's my opinion. And trying to fight people using their open source for whatever they want. So that's all I had. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but if people have some time, I would like everybody to fill out the survey because that makes us look better that we actually have people show up. Or you can just put that in your browser and then do it after the second talk. But yeah, any questions? Anybody want to fight me about iOS being better than Android? Or any arguments?
Not an argument, but just to add to that too. So iOS uses CocoaPods instead of like the great dependencies that we use, and it's all publicly open source. And so one of GitHub's infrastructure team actually commented on the CocoaPods project and said, "You guys are DDoS attacking us this past week." So like CocoaPods has been taking forever to actually like on your computer because you have to own like the entire master branch of the so another one on internet.
I don't know if this would be a fix to it, but I heard there's this new thing. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of it. Cartilage? Would that fix that problem?
I haven't used it yet.
I've heard that that's kind of the new cool thing to use.
Yeah, I just thought it was super funny.
Yeah, I think just clone the repository. I don't remember exactly what. It does something cool. I don't remember exactly what, but it's supposed to be better than